So I guess we'll discuss Inyane Geiros. We'll talk about the subject of conversion. How does a non-Jew become a Jew? How does it work? How did we become? Well, there are two types of Jews. There are Jews by birth and Jews by choice. One of you born to a Jewish family, the other of you convert. So how did the first one come about? How did I become Jewish? Not me per se, but how did the Jewish people originally become Jewish? So obviously everyone went through a conversion process. So we're really all converts to a certain extent. That originally it started with Adam and Eve and Noah, and then Abraham, all the forefathers, etc., and it went down. So actually it's a discussion in the earlier commentators, the Ramban and the Bali Tosfos, at what point what happened. Everyone agrees that Mount Sinai, the final step happened. We became full-fledged Jews at Mount Sinai. The question is, what was our status before? So some say we were totally not Jewish beforehand, and at Mount Sinai we went from regular non-Jews to Jews. And others point out that no, that we went through a quasi-status. So we started off non-Jews, and then with Abraham, he introduced new commandments, Yitzchak introduced new things, Yaakov introduced new things, and like the Maimonides writes, it was kind of like a level. Each mitzvah we added, when we make a blessing, we say, Asher Kiddushadam B'Tzivanu. We get our sanctity from being commanded. So therefore, each commandment that was added, we had a higher level of sanctity. So the question is, that went on until finally at Mount Sinai we became full-fledged Jews. So it's a discussion what type of transformation it was. Was it from nothing to everything, or we had a quasi status? But either way, everyone agrees. The bottom line, at Mount Sinai, we became full-fledged Jews. So the question is, so when we look, so therefore, how do we convert someone else? We look to Mount Sinai. How did we become Jewish at Mount Sinai is how we convert other people. So what happened at Mount Sinai? So I guess, number one, do we have to go to Har Sinai? Do we have to give a class at before someone wants to convert, we have to give a mountain climbing class, make sure they can get up the mountain. We have to prepare the light show because there was kolos, there was thunder, lightning, the shofar was blowing. So many things happened at Mount Sinai. So what exactly do we take over for the future in order that a person has to do? So that Talmud tells us, increases. On Daf Tes, on the page 9, the Gemara tells us that basically there are three things a person needs to become Jewish, and for a woman only two. But you need milah, circumcision, you need tefillah, immersing in a mikvah, and the one that we'll get to accepting in the mitzvahs. That'll be a prerequisite, but there's another one the Gemara says you have to bring a karban, you have to bring a sacrifice in the temple. So there's circumcision, immersion, and sacrifice. So the question is, so maybe we can't accept converts today because we don't have sacrifices. So how do we know if the Talmud says we need those three things and we can't bring sacrifices? So how do we know? Because the verse says, Lidoro Sechem. In the actual pasuk it says, we accept converts forever, for all future generations. So from there the Talmud deduces that when you have a temple, so they have to bring a sacrifice, but we don't have any temple anymore. So for a man you just need milah and tefillah, you need circumcision and immersion, and for a woman she just needs immersion. So that's what the Gemara concludes that. So however, interesting enough, it's going to be a busy time when the temple is going to be rebuilt, because the Gemara says, obviously a convert can't bring a sacrifice, we don't have a temple, but they have to designate money. They have to put money aside, so when the temple is rebuilt, they'll be able to have that money for the sacrifice. However, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, one of the great rabbis in the Talmud, said, nah, it's not working out well, because what happened is people put the money aside, and then they're running to two moms or somewhere, they're running to buy some food, and they take the money, which is supposed to be for holy matters, and they use it on everyday things. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said, no, you don't have to put aside money anymore. However, Maimonides points out, it's true you don't have to put money aside, but let's say you are alive, you are a convert, and you're alive when the temple is rebuilt, you will have to bring a korban. Every convert will have to bring a korban when the temple is rebuilt. In fact, it's going to be a busy time, because not only converts, but every woman who had a child, because one of the things you do after you have a childbirth, you also, so it's so I guess the temple is going to be very crowded the first couple of days, weeks, until you get everyone in, then it might slow down after that. So maybe you could get, what's those places they sell tickets and stuff, you can make a good deal and work out scalping tickets and get some good tickets, get online quicker. But either way, so that's what, so that was the discussion then. You had to bring a sacrifice, but now we don't have to bring, and that the other issues were taken care of the time in the temple. So basically, we don't have to worry about sacrifices anymore. So basically, all you need is circumcision and immersion, and of course you need, as we'll see, you need acceptance of the commandments. You have to fundamentally agree to accept the Torah, and as well, as we'll see, and as well doing it in front of a beis din, doing it in front of a Jewish court. Even we'll see the Gemara itself doesn't talk about those things. There's different Gemaras and different Rishonim elsewhere, but that's what it's going to come down to. So let's just focus on the two the Gemara spoke about, Mila and Tefillah. So what is the order? Which one, is there an order? Like, let's say for a man, for a woman you don't have to worry, there's only one thing, Tefillah. So there's no order. But what about for a man? A man convert. Do you do Tefillah first? That's what I mean. What would you, if you were setting up the law, which way would you set it up?
Tefillah and then Mila.
Yeah, why?
It's the healing. You don't want to delay.
Very, very good. So that's why, so number one, the order is not that way, and that's the question we're going to ask. The Gemara says, first the Gemara talks about, first you try to talk the person out of it just to make sure they're sincere. And once you assume they're sincere, you do the Mila right away, and then whenever the person gets better, because you recover from the Mila, and then you go into the mikvah. So everyone asked Jonathan's question, like, what do you mean? It would have made more sense the opposite. It would have made more sense to do the immersion first, and then you do the Mila, so you're Jewish right away. So if it takes you a week or 2 weeks, what's the difference? Why should you have to wait in between? So the question is, how critical is the order? So the ideal is to do Mila and then Tefillah. How critical is that order? If I want to do Tefillah first and then Mila, is it still okay? Or it's not a good conversion to have to do it in the correct order? So that's a major discussion in the commentaries. The Ramban, Nachmanides, he says the preferable order is first Mila, then Tefillah, but he says it doesn't make a difference. You can reverse the order. If you did first Tefillah and then Mila, he said it's okay. So why did the Gemara say? The reason he says why the Gemara said to do Mila first is only because the context is you're talking to a convert, making sure that it's sincere. And what's the difficult one, Mila or Tefillah? You could talk the talk, but I don't want people doing the Tefillah and then backing out and they don't want to do the Mila. So he said the reason why Mila is first is because it shows that they're probably not going to stop you after the Mila. They're probably going to keep up. So therefore, he said, but bottom line, if you did both, it doesn't make. Once you did the Tefillah and Mila, it doesn't make a difference. That's why the Gemara says the Mila first, but there's no real order. That's the order we do it, but if you do it in reverse order, it's okay. And others disagree with the Ramban and say no.
You're setting them up for a problem.
If you do it which way?
Tefillah then Mila.
Yeah, you say because there's no better. You're not setting up. Right, I guess it depends. I don't know. I'm not sure who you're setting up. It depends at what point. Yeah.
You're setting them up to have a problem.
What? But then,
Because if they don't get the Mila,
then what would happen?
And you're, it's
No, you mean no. I'm talking about someone who is going to back out, and then that means they don't want to be Jewish anymore, so then it won't be a problem.
But once you do tefillah,
well, that's what we'll have to see. Is that true? We'll get to that. I didn't get to that. The question: let's say someone does Mila and not Tefillah, or the woman, or someone did Tefillah. So obviously, for a woman, there's no option. It's either Tefillah or nothing. But for a man, let's say you will mow below Tavel. We'll get to that question in a minute, but before that, so the Ramban writes that you can reverse, or others say no, it has to be specifically in that order. So what's the proof of Nachmanides? It's a very interesting Gemara which has a lot of contemporary ramifications in modern technology and bioethics today. The case the Gemara tells us in Yevamos, page 78, the Gemara has the following case. A Gentile who is pregnant and she converts. So she goes to the mikvah, she's pregnant. So what's the status of the fetus, of the child that is going to come out? So the Gemara just says...
converted already.
Right, so the Gemara says, Bena Ein Sri... The simple reading of the Gemara is that you don't need anything. Ein Sarach Tefillah, the Gemara says, implying, we'll have to see what that means, but the simple reading would say that, she's Jewish, or at least for a girl she should be Jewish if the tefillah counts, that's all there is. But for a man, we'll see, you still need the milah, so that's we'll get into, right? But the Gemara says it's good. So the question is, so the Ramban learns this Gemara as follows. So the question is, the child coming out now, is the child Jewish or not? That would be the question. So the Ramban learns, at least for a man, we'll see, because the woman, if the tefillah works, she's Jewish, and then the discussion. But for a man, you need two parts. So the question is the child Jewish yet? This means, according to the man, the question is, well, you don't have to do tefillah again or not. That would be the question. Or you could say if he was born Jewish, he's like any other child. He's definitely going to have a milah, we'll see. But the question is, why does he have to have a milah? Is it to finish off the conversion? Or, no, he's Jewish, but I had a milah also. I came out from a Jewish mother. So why does he have to have a milah? Is it because, like any baby, any Jewish male needs a milah, but really he's Jewish, and if he didn't do the circumcision, he's still Jewish? Or no, do I say, the tefillah works, but he still has to do the milah? So the Ramban seems to learn that he's not Jewish yet, that he's doing the tefillah. The tefillah did work, but he needs the milah to finish off the process. That's how the Ramban learns the Gemara. So the Ramban says, here's my proof. In this case, what happened? The child did the tefillah first, then he did the milah. So we see, just like in that case, even though it was out of order, because obviously you couldn't do the milah, it's hard to do a milah when the fetus is in the womb. So just like in this case, the Ramban writes that this person first did the tefillah, then the milah, so too the Ramban says that's a general rule. And others say, what about others who disagree with the Ramban? Others say, no, you can't reverse the order. So what do they do with this Gemara? So different approaches. One approach is, you're right, they say for a girl it works. For a girl it's Jewish, but for a guy, you need a milah and a tefillah. Somewhere that does nothing for the guy. For the girl, she's Jewish, but for the guy, he needs a milah, then he has to do another tefillah. And the third opinion is no, that the person's Jewish. How come we said you can't switch to order? So how come it works in this case, according to that opinion who says you can't switch the order? So he says because we're not switching the order because when the person's converting, it's like the fetus is in the womb, so it's impossible to do a bris milah. So there actually is halacha we'll get into that actually, let's say, there'll be a difference. That's someone who's castrated. So therefore many say then you could do the conversion, or let's say whatever reason they don't have they cut off the gear, whatever the issue is, they don't have that part of the body. Physically speaking, it doesn't exist, they can't do it, so it's a good, that person could convert without doing milah. We'll see, we'll get into if someone can do physically milah, but a medical issue. I had that shaila. I'll get to that in a minute. But the Gemara says they compare it to a woman. A woman can't do a circumcision. This person who's in the fetus, obviously, so we treat the conversion like we're converting a girl, and therefore they say you don't need anything, and you don't. The person's completely. So we have three opinions in terms of how you learn this Gemara. According to the Ramban, he says it's a conversion process. The tefillah works. So for a girl, that's all she needs. She's Jewish. But for a man, he did the tefillah and he doesn't finish the conversion process until he does the milah. So he's not completely Jewish or Jewish at all. We'll see if you could be half Jewish or not. You're not Jewish until you get the milah. The other opinion is that it's nothing. You have to do the milah and the tefillah. You haven't, for the guy hasn't done anything. And the other opinion, the Ritva and the Ra, that no, it's good. The person's Jewish, even the man's Jewish. So what is the milah? You're doing a milah because you're a Jewish male and you have to have a milah. Those are the different opinions in terms of reversing the order. So therefore, halacha l'maisa. In fact, there were cases. My friend told me it was funny. He was walking. This is the days of payphones. If I can't even find payphones today, when I tell my kids payphones, they say, "What are those?" They think payphones. Your landlines. You have to pay for it, I guess. But so what happened was so it used to be in YU, there was like the third floor where the base of Medrash was, and people used to call. Didn't call me. They call you. They look for the different rabbi. People had questions. They used to call up. That was the payphone. You hear a ring. Can I speak to Rav Shechter, Rabbi, whoever it is? And that's how you used to speak to people then. So my friend told me he was walking by once. He made the mistake of picking up the phone, and this person had like this major conversion. Of course, he wasn't going to answer the question, but the question was, it was out somewhere in Argentina, and I guess they were doing some conversion in mass for some reason. I don't know, 90 families were converting, and there was there was like an infectious disease, and what's it, with the CL something, what do you call it?
Cholera.
Yeah, cholera or whatever, something like that. And basically, the basement wanted to get out of there as soon as possible. They didn't want to catch this disease, so they wanted to know, or whatever, something didn't make a difference what it is, whatever it was, and they wanted to know, could we do the tefillah first, because the problem was they're going to do the milah, they're going to have to stick around for a week or two or whatever, and then they wanted to know if we could do the tefillah first and then do the milah later, or actually, do the tefillah and then do the milah right away. So obviously he wasn't going to answer the question, but that was, so Halach and Shulchan Aruch, they bring down both opinions. So practically speaking, we're strict that one has to do the milah, because according to half the people you're not Jewish if you do the reverse order. So therefore we assume that one has to do first the milah and then do the tefillah, because like all cases by Geiros we're going to be strict, because again there's no push comes to shove, you can't do it, then we could discuss, we could try to work things out, but if it's something that can be worked out, we always try to fulfill.
Do you think that there might be a historical reason for the order in the Talmud? Because new Christians at the time were obsessed with baptism, and perhaps it was a way of like setting up a gedera between the Jews, and the new Christians who at the time were essentially Jews who had diverged, and it was a way of asserting a Jewish somebody who had circumcision and tefillah, not just tefillah.
But I mean, that's how they wanted to do milah first, to separate.
Yeah, it was to assert, we are not the old Jews or the new Christians or whatever they were called at the time.
Right, that'd be right, because we have, you say that could be more like a meta halacha, that, right, even though I think historically speaking we probably did it, I'm not sure, if it is the same time, then it could be, I think, because we might have done it earlier, but you're right, but that would make, but what you're saying is...
Well, the Talmud's year, 200?
Yeah, I'm saying... Yeah. Yes, I'm just assuming that we do have different things set up. Like, let's say, like later on we do things. Let's say, because the Reform do a lead on or something like that. But so to the head things like that. So that even though they learned it out, the Gemara learns it out from Sukkim by that's what happened at Har Sinai. What I'm saying is, but the idea, that the idea would have been a good one anyway. Historic, I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know if it's historically true or not, but it's definitely it's an interesting suggestion.
When was Ramban living?
Well, around the time of the Rambam, a little, they overlap.
Is it 12
Yeah,
centuries?
11, yeah, 12.
1200?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a long time
Yeah.
when. So
No,
by then.
No, she's talking about the Talmud.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the Talmud. The
So
Talmud.
Nachmanides was the guy who said, "Okay, you can
He's
reverse
one of
stuff."
the.
So he's going right back to the beginning. Says whereas you're saying that Nachmanides says, "Okay, strict." He's saying like, "Okay, in terms of scripturally, you can reverse them; it doesn't matter." But we're not. They're saying that we're saying that the later commentaries like we're not going to do that because we want to stay differentiated from.
No, my question was if the original source from Talmud intentionally put the order first Mila and then Tefillah in order to assert their
difference from
You
the
wanted to show because I would. Right, wanted to show.
Oh, it could be totally wrong. Yeah.
No, I'd call it interesting speculation. No, but like the concept exists that they would do things to try to, show a separation.
Right. Meaning, it's not a difference in significance of the mitzvah. It was essentially at that time it was important to differentiate. Although each mitzvah is equally
Right. I'm saying independently they would have done Mila and Tefillah anyway. I'm saying that could have been an added factor because you're explaining, you're just giving a possible. Why did they do Mila before Tefillah? So you just want to give logically the Rishonim say it should be the opposite. So people just giving a possible answer why the Gemara did it. You're not arguing on it. You're just giving.
Right.
Yeah. So
and the fact that people continue to argue it today means that there is the possibility at least to have the opposite order. Right.
No, right. Right.
The question is why for that order in the Talmud.
Right. So therefore, practically speaking, there's no reason to So therefore, we're strict. So therefore, we always try to do the Mila before the Tefillah. But at least according to the Ramban, clearly states it's okay. But the case I got actually was actually. So we said you need Mila and Tefillah. So do you need both of them? Is one of them? So actually, the different opinions in the Gemara. Which one? If I said you only need one, Mila, Tefillah, which one would you say logically? Would you say should count more than the other? If I was.
Tefillah.
Yeah, why?
Because you only need why? Well, if you're a woman, you only need
exactly.
That's
100%. Yeah, because obviously we see it works for a woman. So therefore, you could begin to argue Tefillah really is the conversion, and Mila. In fact, that would be the question: what role does Mila play for a man? Is it an integral part of the conversion process, or no? Basically, Tefillah is the conversion process, but Mila is it's kind of like we have an expression in the Gemara. It's the Rambam writes it in Hilchas Tshuva of Tovel v'sheretz biyados. You go to the mikveh to become pure, and you're holding this creepy bug, this bug that is defiled, you're holding it in the mikveh. So obviously the mikveh is not going to do anything because you're holding on to that tamei animal. In other words, what the Gemara talks about it is, let's say you buy a non-kosher pot from a non-Jew. So you need two things. The pot, no food, just the pot. So you need tefillas kelim, you have to put the pot in the mikveh, and you have to kasher it. So what's the order? So the Gemara writes, the simple reading of the Gemara Mazor seems to say you kasher it first, and then you immerse it. So the Tosfos wants to know is that a lav davka? Again, does the order make a difference? Let's say I bought the pot, I have it in the store, let me just immerse it, and then I'll cut. Is that okay? So Tosfos wants to know. Tosfos says, yeah, you can do it out of order, but then he says, why would anyone possibly think that it specifically has to be first kashered and then mixed? So he says, perhaps because the concept of tova v'sheretz b'yada. Why? How could I be tova if it's still treif? So therefore, he says that maybe you could argue that it's like the case of the mikveh. Why does the person have to do a milah first before the tefillah for man? Because it's kind of like tova. The arla is like the treif, this foreskin, and therefore, how could you go to the mikveh while you still have the foreskin? So that's what someone who equate that same issue. So that's the machlokas Tosfos and the Rashbam. Tosfos says you could go out of order, you could tovel it and then kasher it, and the Rashbam says no, that's the same issue. They connect between the tefillah and milah. So again, if you can, it's best to kasher first and then tovel it, just like we do in terms of that. But that's the same issue. So I had a case it must be like 10 years ago already. There's an Italian guy in Hamilton, I forget his name, and he wanted to become Jewish. But whatever, I'm saying, the specific, this guy was a little crazy anyway, but so we don't have to know that for the example. But bottom line is, he wanted to become Jewish. He was a very sick man, might be, mentally it was something wrong, but he was still a very nice guy and this and that. He used to come to shul on Shabbos, but medically he wasn't well. He lived in one of these homes, not a regular home, like a place where they take, you take, not a nursing home, but I think one of the
group home?
Yeah, maybe a group home or something. And so he really wanted to become Jewish. And the problem was, I think he had, what's the problem? I think he was a diabetic. Does that make sense? Or maybe is that connection between that, or maybe he's the hemophilia, whatever it was. Either way, he couldn't. The bottom line, whatever the case was, by him doing, he was an older guy anyway, he was like 70. The question was, could he do a circumcision? He'd be endangering his life. Basically, the doctor said, you're endangering him by doing the circumcision. So the question was, so medically speaking, the case that I'm getting at is physically you could have done it. There was something there to do it, but medically speaking, the doctor said no, and this person wanted to become Jewish. So let's assume, he wanted us to do the Milah, we weren't going to do it, but because he really wanted to become Jewish. He said, he's willing to die if whatever it takes, but we weren't going to do, number one, I wasn't all there either, so I wasn't going to do it anyway, but for certain we weren't going to do it in that case. So that's the case. Medically speaking, he couldn't do a Milah, but he wanted to become Jewish. So would you say it's enough just to do tefillah for him, or, in other words, the question is it equated to like the fetus in the womb, or someone who's castrated? The halakha is it's okay, all you need is tefillah. Or did I say, since potentially you could do it, you have a medical issue. So actually, this is a major shaila, Rev. So I thought the issue was as follows, based on a different Gemara, because I'll tell you, it's a Rav Chaim Ozer Gruzinski, one who's basically he was the big rabbi in Europe, like Rav Moshe Feinstein was here. So he discussed. But first we'll get to what he says in a minute. He just gets the bottom line. But I thought it was dependent on this issue. There's a Gemara in Yevamas that talks about someone who's a Kohen. We know he gets to eat from the truma, gets to eat the special foods. Only a Kohen can have it. However, a Kohen has to be mahol. He has to have a circumcision. A Kohen Aro, someone can't eat the truma. That's just halacha. So what about the following case? Let's say they have a son, they do a milah, the son dies, and the next one dies. So basically, it's called Mesu Achiv Machmas Milah. Your brothers die because of circumcision. So halacha is you don't do a circumcision on the next child because it's already a chazon. Again, there's a discussion maybe later on, the person's stronger, but the bottom line is we don't do it right now anyway. So, and the halakha tells me I can't do it. I want to do it. Halakha says no milah because you're endangering the child. You're not allowed to do a milah. So the question is, and he's a Kohen, can he eat from the truma, this Kohen? He's an Aro, or I should say he doesn't have a milah. So is he allowed to eat the truma? So someone who can have a milah and doesn't, he certainly can't eat. That's not a question. The question is here, the halakha is telling me I can't do a milah, so to just say, so does that make a difference in that? So that seems to be a dispute between Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam and that Gemara over there. The question is, does this Kohen have a status of an Aro? In other words, and the question is, how do you define an Aro? Is it just physically uncircumcised, or no? It is more to it. So one opinion says that no, as long as so one opinion says he's an Aro, one says he's not. So what's the issue? Yeah.
Under what circumstances would you have a Kohen who is not allowed to eat from the truma? You're forgetting questions of milah. what other situations are when he's tameh, when he's possible?
Yeah, I mean, different,
all these different things, right?
Right. I'm saying is, but
so you're saying so not having mila would be one of the
yeah,
things that
because that means that would make him an aros. That's the question. The question is what makes the person aros? It's a famous question. It says they asked by Avram Avinu. Avram Avinu, he waited to be commanded. We have a tradition in the Midrashim that the Avos, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, they kept the Torah even before, whatever that means exactly, they kept the Torah before it was given. And Avram volunteered all the commandments. So the question, however, when it came to circumcision, he waited to be commanded by God. So they all asked the famous question, why did he wait by Milah? Why by all the other commandments? So the many answers. One answer is because, by definition, a bris means a covenant. You can't do one with yourself. You need someone else. So you need God. You need someone to command me to. But others point out, right? So the Maharal Diskin, right? The Maharal Diskin says we have a principle: Gadol hametzuva v'yoseh mishe'enu metzuva v'yoseh. Greater is the one. It's counterintuitive. But the principle is the one who does the commandment, the one who does something who's commanded, it gets greater reward than the one who volunteers. Even though it's counterintuitive, I prefer my child to take out the garbage before I tell her. But what does Tosfos say? The reason isn't because there is a certain level where volunteering is a higher level. But Tosfos says the issue is because it's harder to do something when you have to do it. No one likes to be told something. In fact, that's child psychology. How do you get the kid to listen? You tell them the opposite. Of course, the question is, at what point do you have to teach your child you're supposed to listen to your parents, not do the opposite? That's a separate chinuch question. But it's human nature. No one wants to be told, so therefore, it's much harder to do something. It's like on your day off in camp. Okay, you want to sleep, you want to go to the baseball field, you want to go to do arts, and you do whatever you want. If you're working in co-work, you're going to be more stressed out because you have a job to be done. So it's harder to do something that's what it means. Not that it's a higher level, that sometimes volunteering can be a higher level. So either way, so since we have a principle, greater is the one who does a mitzvah who's commanded than who volunteers. So Avram, by other mitzvahs, I could put on tefillin today, put on tefillin tomorrow. It doesn't make a difference. I can eat matzah today, eat matzah next year. Meal you only can do once. So when he's doing it once, he wanted to make sure he did it with what he was commanded. But the answer I want to focus on is the Bris Garav from the Soloveitchik family. He says something interesting. He says someone who is what comes first, the chicken or the egg. He says it's a very subtle point which will explain this. It's the mitzvah of milah which creates the status of an aura. In other words, aura doesn't mean the fact you have a foreskin. Everyone had a foreskin. Before you had the mitzvah of milah, there was nothing wrong with having a foreskin. We all had it. It was the mitzvah of milah that created this negative status of having a foreskin. So, for instance, he points out, because it says right before this, it says God came to Avram, and Avram went down on his knees. It says he felt incomplete before he did the milah. The question is why this is the first God was talking to Avram hundreds of times before this. Why come he didn't feel incomplete? And the answer is because he was just given the mitzvah of milah now. So it's the mitzvah of milah that creates the status of being an aro. So therefore that's what some will say. If someone who can't do milah because the halacha says I can't do milah, so therefore, I'm not considered an aro. Do I say, there is no mitzvah of milah, therefore I'm not an aro, and that's why I can eat the truma? Or others say, no. Really, you do have a mitzvah. It's just that you're an onus, you're under duress, you're not going to get punished, but it's someone who's, the question, how do we view this Kohen whose brothers died? Do we view him as someone who's commanded a milah except he can't do it? Then that he could be an aro? Or they say, no. The halacha says this person has no mitzvah of milah. So if there's no mitzvah of milah, I don't have this. So perhaps you could argue this by this conversion case. Like this person, medically speaking, can't do milah. So how do I view this? that basically there's a commandment of Milah, but he can't do it, okay, then you can't become Jewish. Or they say, no, since he can't do the mitzvah of Milah, so therefore the mitzvah of Milah never kicks in all you need. So, I could argue either way. And in fact, there's a famous story. There's this Rav Chaim Ozer Gruzansky, who was like the posek in Europe. He went around collecting money for his yeshiva or whatever he had, and he met this balabas and who used to give him money. And all of a sudden they got talking, and he found that this person was a convert, the guy who was, and he had his thing on the wall, like he had I guess he wrote up a whole cloth or something, and it was the Zecher Yitzchak or Yitzchak. The rabbi signed who did it. The case was, this is the case. This guy was sick. He medically couldn't do Milah, and this rabbi said he was okay. He passed him that you could become a Jew and the conversion was good. He said, all you need is the immersion, forget about, that's what this rabbi told them. So Rav Chaim Moses sees this, he starts going crazy. You're not Jewish, this whole thing is, and he wasn't upset at the guy, he was upset. He said his rabbi shouldn't be passing shilas anymore. He felt strongly that not that way. He felt that when it comes to the laws of conversion, Milah isn't just a detail, but it's a prerequisite. And if you can't do a Milah, then you can't. So that seems to be the normative practice. Seems to go like Rav Chaim Ozer Gruzansky. There's room to discuss, but the standard. Al Pi Svara, I could have came up with a reason why I could have converted. I thought Pi Svara, I had good reason to do it, but the normative halacha seems to be like Rav Chaim Ozer Gruzansky says that we don't do it. That if someone can't do milah because he physically doesn't have it, then it's okay. You're like a woman in that sense. Everyone agrees it's okay. If you're castrated, it's okay. But in terms of you physically can do it, but medically not, so that's a question. Again, there's room to argue in either direction. The consensus today seems to follow Rav Chaim Ozer that we do not do a milah in that case because we feel the milah is essential. So that's the issue there with the person. So the Gemara talks about what's essential. So there's an opinion. There's one opinion that says mol below tavo is good or no good, tavo below mol. The bottom line is there's different opinions in the Gemara. Well, halacha we assume you need both. So you need milah without tefillah, you're not Jewish, and tefillah without milah. That's the bottom line. In fact, interesting. There was an interesting case in about 250, 200 years ago in Yerushalayim. This person, I think he came from Morocco, and that's what makes a difference. I just think that coincidentally he happened to come from Morocco, but that doesn't change. He could have came from anywhere. So he was converting, and they did the milah. They learned the Gemara, you do milah first. But it took him a while to heal, and Shabbos came. I guess it takes a day or two, and you usually get the milah and tefillin before Shabbos. But the case was, he did the milah, but it was Shabbos now, he didn't do the tefillah. He couldn't go into the mikveh yet because infections, whatever. So he wanted to know, should I keep Shabbos? Mol v'lo tava. So the rabbi in Yerushalayim, the Be'er Yosef Salant, he was probably going collecting money somewhere. So I think the Rav around was Rav Asher Lemo. He was the Rav, and so he asked Rav Asher Lemo, I think, so what should I do? He said, we know the Gemara says Mol v'lo tava, it's Mol lo tava, you're not a Jew, you better go ahead, and desecrate the Shabbos. Go into the back room, do something, right, and do it. Okay, so he did it. When the rabbi told him to do it, he did it. So I guess word got out what happened, and the Beis Din in Jerusalem heard about this, and they went to Rav Asher Melmo and said, "What is going on here? We know we do. We're in charge of we're in charge of conversions, and no, the minhag is that he keeps Shabbos. Welcome to Judaism." One rabbi is telling him to keep Shabbos, one telling him not to. So this guy's so what's going on? And so they sent a letter, the rabbis in Jerusalem sent a letter to Germany to the Binyan Sia and Rabbi Etlinger. That's what Shem Shimon Hirsch's Rabbi. It just shows the greatness of the Binyan Sia. If the Gedolim in Yerushalayim was sending a letter to him, and they asked him, they said, "Who's right? What do we do?" So he says, "Well, you know how the story goes. You're both right. You know, the husband and wife come to the rabbi, and I guess they're having some shalom bayis issues. So you hear what the wife says. The rabbi says, yeah, you're right. And you hear the husband, you're right. So the wife says, how can we both be right? You're right also. So what happened here? So they went to, so he says, he's right, even though strictly speaking, the Gemara does say if you only do Mila, not the Tefillah, you're not Jewish. However, he says, the minig is that you do keep Shabbos. The minig is that once you do the Mila, you do keep, why? Where do we see historical precedent for that? That
Abraham, he kept Shabbos, he didn't have Mila. Oh wait, other way around.
He kept Shabbos before Mila, yeah. So where do we find precedent where they had a Mila without Tvila and they kept Shabbos?
When they left Yetziat Mitzrayim.
Correct. So that's what we, what? Mara, right. So what happened was, we know the source when the Gemara says increases is Mila right before they ate the Karban Pesach. That's when they did the Mila. And the Tefillah didn't happen until Har Sinai. So the time in between, Mara is where they say they kept Shabbos. So the Bnei says, look, we see the Jews, we always go back to what they did. So we see they were mobile Taval. And it's not totally them because it's more of a drush because the Torah wasn't given yet. But that's what he has an interesting right. He says the Jews were mobile Torah. He says that's the minhag. That I guess somehow by doing Mila, because see, why is it an issue? Because the halach is if you're a non-Jew, you're not allowed to keep Shabbos. Right? They say, what's the big deal? Just keep Shabbos. Because the issue is if you're not Jewish, you can't keep Shabbos. If you are Jewish, you have to keep Shabbos. So that's why it's an issue. So in fact, interesting. Well, someone suggested in this case of Mobile Otavo, one rabbi suggested, he says that we should wear tzitzis on Shabbos. I guess in this case where there's no Erev, that also wouldn't help. That reminds me of another joke, because it says with the because they, so they told this guy, the convert, he didn't convert yet. They said, you have to machal Shabbos. He said, I'm carrying. They said, no, there's an Erev. He said, no, I don't hold from that Erev.
I love it.
There's also later, isn't there the opposite situation where, because as Jews, as Joshua entered Israel, he circumcised them all. Instead of it's opposite. All the converts who they picked up en route in the desert were not circumcised, but they were Toivel, you can assume.
Right, no, right, those that happened afterwards, right, no. Right, no, so she's talking about, right, there's a pasuk in Yoshua which says Himol Shein. Is basically that that number one, we have a tradition that they didn't do in the midbar, whether they were justified or not, because there was a danger. That they didn't do the mitzvah Mila for a long time afterwards. But in the pasuk in Yoshua, what we learn out Himol Shein is the Gemara learns out that Yoshua introduced the mitzvah of Priya. I mean, there are two parts to the Mila. He can't introduce it because they say it's really halacha Moshe Sinai, but there's the Mila, the cutting off the foreskin, and the Priya is revealed. Yeah, but that's true in terms of they didn't do the Mila in the midbar. So that's how. So they point out. So this case was. So they said they didn't have an area. They said wear tzitzis. Why? Because if you're Jewish, so then it's okay. You're not carrying it because that's something that's part of your garment, considered your beged. But if you're not Jewish and you're wearing tzitzis, I mean, the beged will be okay, but the strings you're wearing on, they're considered. So that's what some suggested to do, that is to wear tzitzis on Shabbos.
So in this case, it wasn't they didn't make it into a beged. They had actually somehow tied it onto the.
Right. Back in the days of the Gemara, they didn't. Like today, we wear a special garment. We put tzitzis. But back in the day, that they had garments, four-corner garments, and they just put the tzitzis on the garments. That we'll get into. Yeah, we'll get into tzitzis next week. Shvach, it gets into tzitzis and stuff in terms of at the end of Shvach. But that's what they say in the case. So even though mol v'lo tavel kilo mol, they pointed out. So let's just summarize. So we discussed the different requirements of conversion. We discussed that originally, that either according to the Bali Tosfos, they basically became from nothing to everything on Har Sinai. According to the Ramban, they started keeping, from Avram Avinu on, they kept adding more, but they didn't come to a full-fledged Jews until Har Sinai. The Gemara says you need Mila, Tefillah, and Karban. Carbonized, and how can we have converts today? So it says Gedoro Sechem, all future generations, and therefore we learn out that even if you don't have a temple, that means that you don't have to bring a carbon. And then we pointed out that when the Beit HaMikdash is rebuilt, there'll be long lines at the temple, so I'd buy tickets early, so you can, you don't have to wait so long, because all the people, all the women who had children, and all the converts will be online. You'd have to have him bringing carbonas. Either way, we don't have to worry about today. We had Mila and Tefillah, a discussion whether the order is critical or not, or the Ramban says no, and others say it is. The proof or non-proof would be from a Gentile woman who's pregnant. She converts depending how you learn that Gemara, whether the child's Jewish or is the conversion lead to different. And this parenthetically, I didn't get into another time, is that gets into the major question today, is who's considered, it'd be, let's say, what's the definition of being born Jewish? Is it the conception or is it the birth? In other words, let's say with all these different modern technology things today, let's say the conception came from a Gentile, but was born from a Jew. So that to be this point, all making in one point is the whole discussion in its own right. We see from the Ramban that even though you could come out of a Jewish mommy and still not be Jewish. In other words, that he said because since she was conceived, he holds is not Jewish. So it's not. So that's what's the definition of the mother from the conception, birth, to separate? I'm just pointing it out on the side, and then we'd assume you need the discussion. So therefore, we do Mila and Tefillah, and then we got into someone who medically can't do the Mila, whether that's grounds to stop the conversion or not. And then in terms of the Mol Tavo, someone who does the Mila and not the Tefillah, so even though they're not Jewish yet, but regarding Shabbos, some say that you already could keep the Shabbos because it's like the Jewish people, we're always going back to Mount Sinai, and therefore it's like the Jews, when they left Mitzrayim and they went to Har Sinai, it was Mol Tavo, so too here. Any questions? Comments?
A mother who converts with small children. Those children are Jewish.
But they're already born? Like the kids already born? You mean?
A mother converts with small children. Are the children converted?
No, so the kids have to convert. We have a concept of a ger katan. So then they go through a conversion. Like they go like Beis Din does it with them, and then when they turn 12 or 13, then they have to accept, whether you officially have to do it or the fact that they're living a life of Torah means that they automatically, but they'd have to have a conversion.
Including Tefillah and Mila.
Right. I'm saying because, they weren't part of, the reason why it works is because we have a principle, Uber Yerech Imo, the Uber, so therefore that's why the conversion would work, but someone who's already born, it wouldn't help it because they were born before when they were born, they were. In fact, that's an interesting discussion in the Gemara. Rav Yochanan and Reish Lakish. Let's say someone converts and they have kids already. So everyone agrees they're not Jewish, but the question in the Gemara is, do they fulfill the mitzvah of Pru Ravu? Pru, you have to have a boy and a girl. Let's say they had a boy and a girl when they were non-Jewish and now they converted. That's the question in the Gemara, whether it could count for Pru Rabu or not. And then there's a further discussion, do the kids have to convert? But do the kids have to convert for them to fulfill Pru Rabu? But everyone agrees to be Jewish. The kids don't have to convert, but if they want to become Jewish, they'll have to convert.
Does that mean people have to keep going until they have both a boy and a girl?
You mean in general, nothing to do with converts?
In general, yes.
Yeah, in general, well, in theory, and even if you have a boy and a girl, there's another mitzvah of Sheves Yitzera to populate the world. So in general, you should have as many kids as you deem possible. That as many as you can handle, this and that. So that's just the minimum, and obviously, you can't control what sex the baby's going to be. Whether it's a boy, it's all of whether it's 3 girls, 3 boys, Your job is, the mitzvah is to be osek and provable. Your job is to try to have kids. So it's up to God, what's going to happen.
In the case of surrogacy, I think, obviously I don't want to, obviously there's no time to discuss
something so complicated. That would be a whole topic. That would be the whole issue in terms of, either way, if it's conceived from, non-Jewish, and then it comes out to the birth, like the Jewish conception,
so
non-Jewish birth mother.
The surrogate is a Jew. The surrogate,
right, so
the carrier is a Jew.
So
a Jewish woman.
Right, so the one who is actually coming out is Jewish. You're saying, or the one who
the woman who carries the baby.
Yes.
The one who carries the baby is Jewish. The egg may be from
a non-Jew. So the birth, he's saying it's a birth mother is Jewish,
it's still
but
it's still
from the so it would be a Jewish baby.
Yeah.
Well, what I'm saying is, that's a major discussion. It's not. It's a major question. So the bottom line is, on all these things we go with chumrah, we just do a tefillah. But that's going to be, because it's a major issue. Whether I think Ramos's shita was, if it comes out of a Jewish mom, how could you say it's not Jewish? But I'm saying, the bottom line is, on all these cases, we're going to do a tefillah, because why take a chance? It's not a big deal to just do a tefillah's mikvah. But in all these cases, we're going to go with chumrah, we're going to do an extra tefillah.